This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Board of Fire Commission Tuesday, March 26, 2019 Fire Commission meeting. I'd like everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Borrow your pen. The Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looks different. Thank you very much.
Different.
I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes of the Board of Fire Commission meeting held on February 26th.
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The Chief's report.
Chief's report for this month. Start with alarms. Alarms year to date 2018 last year was 1,115. As of this year, we're at 1059, a difference of negative 56 alarms. 5 years ago, we're at 982 alarms, difference of 77 alarms. At our last Board of Fire Commission meeting, we provided ALS intercept on 15 different occasions, and we responded to the highway on 15 different occasions as well. Looking at our calls since our last meeting, 64% of our calls were EMS related, and since our last meeting, there were 6 incidents which the FD experienced a delay in response to medical or motor vehicle accident, and 4 in which we had no FD apparatus to send at all and relied on AMR solely. Approximately 359 incidents since our last meeting, 84 of which were overlapping, which continues to be 23%. Regarding our budget, year-to-date last year, 81.7. Year-to-date as of this year is 81.3. Just want to bring some recognition to that current year budget of 81.3 this year. The money for, some of the money for the Parker Hannafin expenses didn't come out of our fire department account until we received the money for the insurance. So that number 81.3 is slightly lower. So regardless, we're still where we were last year. Since our last Board of Fire Commission meeting, we've collected $63,220 in permit fees, bringing the total for this fiscal year to $427,088, $427.88. Regarding Fire Marshal's report, 25 inspections conducted since last meeting, 5 re-inspections for a total of 30. Cited 7 different code violations, 3 of which have since been corrected, 1 abatement order issued, 45 different plan reviews and permits have been issued. And some of the issues right now that are taking up a significant amount of time within the Fire Marshal's office continue to be Amazon, an apartment complex in town where there was a number of violations that were found. We're working with the building office on, and 2 Clintonville Road, the North Haven Senior Housing is well underway and probably about 3/4 of the way through construction at this point, and requires a great deal of time as well. One thing we're looking at next couple of weeks is a radio repeater system that was put into the Amazon building for police and fire communications, so that when either agency is in the building, we have the ability to connect with the outside world and with dispatch. So we hope to be testing that soon. And the only thing I have for Chief's report is I've got a couple of issues for executive session. And one issue that came to light today I wanted to add is that Engine 1 will need to go out of service again for an extended period of time. That is a SMEAL at Fire Headquarters. It was determined today that a blown head gasket has occurred again. Whether it's the recurring problem, whether it's regardless at this point, we just found out that it was in fact leaking from that area and it will be out for a long period of time. So within the last year, I just looked before I came here, it's already been out of service for 2 months in the last year for these ongoing issues. So it's something we'll work to address. It remains under warranty at this point, and we're pursuing with the manufacturer and our vendor basically how much longer this is going to be under warranty for, so that we can have some idea in terms of what to plan for the future.
Is there any way though, considering the mechanical issues and that we've experienced with that SMEAL, somehow or another, that we could, through our town attorney, look to have the manufacturer extend
But that's
the
what,
warranty.
as soon as I get the answer to the first question, as far as how much longer the warranty is good for, is it covering the work each time it's done, for a period of time, or is it covering solely from the time of purchase, which are coming up on 5 years pretty soon? When we figure out that answer, I'll be able to then determine if we should go to the town attorney or not and try to fight for some type of coverage here.
Chief, can we go one step further? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, go right ahead.
Can we go sometimes we don't see the forest through the trees. This is the same reoccurrence problems that we've been having with this engine from day one almost.
Correct.
It's 5 years, the same repeated problem. Under the lemon law in Connecticut, it's a 3-time lemon law. We have 33 times. I like to take a shot at Shamil, take a shot at them, go to DMV, put them on the hook, have the town attorney, I want to ask for an extended warranty. We have a $600,000 piece of equipment that we're losing at least 2 months a year. I mean, we just can't keep doing that because we're putting a strain on the older vehicles that are on their last leg right now. We're putting a strain on them when we spent all this money that we can't use our vehicle. And I noticed that it was leaking oil. You brought it to my attention. And I would really like to see the town attorney go after them. Go right through DMV, go to this Consumer Protection, and we've got to go to the Attorney General. This is a major complaint. And I don't think that the company, Shamil, will fight us on that. I don't think they want the bad publicity, that they have an engine that's out of service 20% of the time, 30% of the time. I mean, you've documented it, you've done your homework, so there's no doubt about it.
So I meet with, we'll be with one of the town attorneys for a good part of the day tomorrow, and I'll certainly bring that up. It'll be timely to do so, and I'll see what kind of options are available.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if fire apparatus come under
On the lemon law. Well, you know what? It's a vehicle that's on the road, it goes on, it follows DOT, what do you call it, work? Specs, right?
It's worth investigating, that's for
It's
sure.
worth investigating for $500,000.
Any other questions of the chief?
Yes, I have a question for the chief.
Yes, go ahead.
What engine is going to replace engine 1 this time, chief? You had number 7 down there a long time, the last time it was out of service.
Yeah.
I'm just looking, because I'm a resident of this section of town,
Yeah.
and we only have a ladder truck in here.
Right, yeah, so it's gonna be 2 or possibly 7. There's a order of operations right now we have, and it depends a little bit more on what else has got out of service, or what we expect to go out of service. So it'll be either 2 or 7, most likely engine 2.
7 is not first on the list, Commissioner, because of that very reason.
I beg your pardon, I didn't hear you.
7 is not first on the list. It usually goes engine 2, but the other day we had 3 of our pumping apparatus out of service on the same time, so we had to use 7 as engine 1, so.
Thank you.
But
We're still struggling here with
I understand
3
where you are,
apparatus
chief.
with 25 years or older, so it's a moving target.
I remember when I was a volunteer, there was a certain firehouse in town,
Yeah.
because of a big shot, did not want either of those engines moved.
Sure.
Well, that doesn't work now.
Well, here's, just while we're on the topic real fast, I think it's worth mentioning, some people in town seem to think we have plenty of fire engines. In order to effectively put out a house fire, you need at least 4 of them there. Now, that's not being made up. You need 4 of them, and for not just the water, but for the hose, for the equipment, for the air packs.
And the men.
Firefighters issued an air pack. The air packs are on the engines. The engine is what brings the equipment there. You need 4 apparatus for every house fire we have here in town. Well, we're only starting with 7 to begin with. We've got 3 that are 25 years or older, and 1 that's regularly out of service, and another one we're trying to keep up with. Doesn't leave a whole lot else left, does it?
We have a 32, if we start and we keep losing these units one by one,
Yeah.
I'm worried, we cannot service the town properly or safely. But the other half of the coin is, we have to watch we don't get whacked at our insurance rating. That the insurance they look at the town and say, you don't have proper apparatus. We want to drop your insurance rating coverage. And then we really have a problem. Taxpayers are worried about that. They're going to worry about paying more insurance
With 7
on their
engines,
homes
we've got to keep 7 engines operational.
at all times.
4 to drop 1 because we got to keep maintenance going and so forth.
And it's not like we can rent one or borrow one when it's broke.
No, it doesn't work.
Do you need a motion to get what Commissioner Criscola just said about tracking down this,
I don't believe so. If you
No,
want me to discuss
I think the
tomorrow,
chief will take care of it. He's been on, chief has been on top of it, on everything so far,
okay,
so
good enough for me.
chief will run with it.
Any other questions of the chief regarding his report?
No.
Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to accept.
So move?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Correspondence. Chief, have you received any correspondence? I'll read that letter.
I have no other correspondence in the letter before you know.
All right. Any other commissioners receive any verbal or written correspondence? No. Before I read this letter, I just want to say that the chief and I had an opportunity to visit with the folks over at 555 Elm Street, and I just wanted the chief did a town hall type of meeting and discussed fire prevention, and there were about 25 residents in attendance, and I just want to thank them for their hospitality and for their questions and support that they've provided for the fire department. I think after a couple hours, the chief really went through a significant number of issues that I believe that each of those persons found to be very informative. They absolutely were very supportive of the department and certainly look to invite us to come back again in the future. So I want to thank the persons who coordinated that, and the cookies were good. So, Chief, did you have any comments regarding that particular visit?
No, I mean, it was a receptive audience and asked a lot of good questions, and I think they learned a lot, and I'd encourage any other established organizations or groups that have that kind of a number associated with them, we can certainly make the same accommodations.
Perfect. I did receive a communication from Commissioner Criscola. This was dated February 27 regarding the Montauk Firehouse. And this letter was directed to Mr. Frieda. I respectfully suggest that the Board of Selectmen name the Montauk Firehouse in honor of North Haven's second professional fire chief, the late John E. O'Bear Jr. Jack lived and raised his family in Montauk section of town, and he was a volunteer with the Montauk Volunteer Fire Company from 1954 through 1967, serving in all ranks up through and including assistant chief. He was in North Haven's first class of professional firefighters and served his entire professional career as a North Haven firefighter. Jack served as deputy chief and deputy fire marshal from 1973 to 1983, which he succeeded John Rosadini to become the North Haven's Fire Department second chief. He was a graduate of the National Fire Academy Executive Fire Officer Program and was an adjunct professor of fire sciences at the University of New Haven. Jack earned honors and recognitions, too many to list here, from every state and national fire protection organization, culminating in 1984 with his well-deserved designation as Connecticut Firefighter of the Year and Public Fire Educator of the Year. In 2016, he was inducted into the Connecticut Professional Firefighters Hall of Fame. Jack O'Bear was a man of vision and a man of integrity who devoted his life to enhance the safety of the citizens of the town of North Haven and the safety, dignity, and professionalism of the North Haven professional and volunteer firefighters. I submit that it is fitting honor to name the Montauk Firehouse in honor of the late Chief John E. O'Bear Jr., and I respectfully ask that the Board of Selectmen do so. Very truly yours, Peter J. Criscola Jr., Fire Commissioner, and copies were sent to the captains of each of the volunteer stations, myself as the chairman of the commission, and to our fire chief. I know that our first selectman is in receipt of this letter, and will address it as the time comes. So there's no question that Chief Aubert is very deserving of this, to be determined whether or not the Board of Selectmen is ready to name any other building in town after anyone. But I think that discussion will take place at a Board of Selectmen meeting.
Thank you
Thank you for submitting the letter.
Thank you for reading it, Mr. Chairman.
Any other communications? Hearing none, we'll move on to the discussion of unfinished business of the fire department.
Unfinished business, I have a few things on your agenda. The first is I just want to make sure the board's aware that we're going to start our PSA hearings on April 5th. It's the first hearing that's scheduled. I expect there to be at least 2 hearings, if not up to possibly 4 hearings scheduled over the course of the next couple of months. It's a formality at this point, but I am looking for a motion that allows myself and Deputy Chief Martis to speak on behalf of the town, the fire department in this case, so that we don't get caught in technicality in front of the board or the hearing officer that we're not bestowed to speak on the department's behalf. So looking for a motion to allow for that. This is really just a fact check procedure we're doing right now.
Okay.
I make a motion to resolve that Chief Paul Januszewski and Deputy Chief of Operations Scott Martis are authorized to testify at any upcoming hearings and act on the behalf of the town and the North Haven Fire Department with regards to the PSAR hearings.
I'll second that motion.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Next, and again, as I mentioned last time, we're going to start going through those hearings. I know we'll have commission meetings during those hearings. I would just going to give a brief update. I don't mean to sound vague in doing so, but I certainly don't want to bring on too much of a conversation. They are public record. If the commissioners would like to follow any of the testimony that's taken place, I certainly encourage you to do so. Regarding the AFG application, the FEMA Assistant Firefighter Grant application, I've had no word back on either submission as of today, and that was for the PPE or the fire apparatus. The training facility here at Northeast continues to be developed. There's some work taking place in the back now to remove the pavilion that was damaged and some other site work. And GM2 Associates is, as we speak, is drafting up architectural design for the building. The only thing I have here on your agenda is replacement of damaged equipment. This references the alarm door for the Parker Hannafin fire. Continuing to work with insurance companies and adjusters and so forth for the town and providing them the documentation as requested in a timely manner so that we can come to a resolution on reimbursement. So hopefully over the next month we'll have some money coming back in, and I'll keep the board abreast as far as what that is. And that's all I have for unfinished business.
And Chief, just for the public's edification, all of the equipment has been replaced. All of our firefighters have everything that they need at this point. And obviously, the town has paid for that. We're waiting reimbursement or subrogation from one insurance company to another.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
what we
the
stand at this
insurance
point.
company at this point, a couple of them are just going through the procedural process of photos and evidence collection and documentation and so forth, and going through the steps they need to go through to cut us a check. The subrogation will be between the insurance company for the town and the property owners.
Okay. Any questions of the chief regarding unfinished business?
No.
Discussion of new business of the fire department.
The only thing I have is there's been a design spec that's been finalized for the purchase of the new engine that was approved, and we should be having purchase options identified here within the next week to 10 days. Just waiting on a couple of things from finance.
Okay.
Chief, we're not going to buy it in the same place we bought the one we're having trouble with.
Well, it'll be a competitive bid process or bid list, so it's really a matter of what happens with that process.
And keep in mind, that was an emergency purchase, and we purchased a apparatus off the assembly line. So we didn't spec it out as we're doing now and as we did with the ladder truck.
I understand that. But what I'm saying, let's not get stuck again, because this guy is a neighbor of ours, and he stuck us with a lemon, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, okay. Any other discussions regarding new business for the department? No. Here are none, we'll open it up to public comments. Yes. Please.
Come to the microphone?
Hey, pretty nice.
Yeah, okay. Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Sally Blamey, 5 Blossom Drive. Before I go to my prepared questions, a couple of things that came up during the meeting. First, regarding the proposal for Monowese to be named after Chief John O'Bear. Of course, I would have to wait to hear from my fellow members of the Board of Selectmen and hear a little bit more about the process of naming a building during I'm in my 6th year, and that issue has never come up. But I knew Chief John O'Bear quite well. He was chief during my 4 years on the Board of Finance in the 1980s, and so I worked with him, and we had a very good rapport. So at first blush, I would be extremely supportive, having known him personally. I also knew Chief John Rosadini personally, and some of his brothers who were also volunteers many years ago with this department. So I've known some both the first and second fire chief quite well over the years. And so at first blush, I would be very supportive of naming Monowese after John O'Bear, but I think you could understand, I would have to wait and hear the full discussion at the Board of Selectmen meeting, but I think it's a great idea. He was a great man. I did have a couple of questions on something that the chief brought up during his report. You mentioned that the fire department did pay some of the money for replacement of the Defco Park damaged fire equipment. I know that the total to replace all the equipment was somewhere in the neighborhood of $550,000. Approximately, you said some of that was paid by the fire department. Do you know how much out of that approximate $550,000?
About 100,000 at this point.
100,000, okay. And you had reported $427,888 in fees, that's plan review fees?
Correct.
And that is for the calendar year or the fiscal year?
Fiscal year.
Okay, so that, well, sometimes when you say year, I know some of your statistics are based on calendar year.
Correct.
Which are your alarm numbers, but then, so for the future, if you make budgetary statements, it would be based on the fiscal year. You can understand the
Correct.
confusion.
Yeah, budgetary is always going to be fiscal year.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I know you use calendar year for other representations, and I just wanted to check that out. Okay, and I came here tonight primarily for a couple of reasons. One, there was a discussion at the most recent Board of Finance meeting, which was last week, and there seemed to be some confusion and misunderstanding about the 2 newest firefighters that were hired. I believe, was it in January that they were hired? Can you say?
It may not have started until February, but yeah.
But those 2, there was confusion. Now, they're entry level. I looked at the minutes, and they're entry level firefighters.
Correct.
And I thought you said at the February Fire Commission meeting, which I attended last month, that those 2, and for the purposes of this part of my conversation, I'm talking about the 2 recently hired, not the 2 proposed in the next budget.
Sure.
So those 2 new firefighters, there was some confusion about whether or not they were already at the academy, and I thought you said last month that they were not yet, and they wouldn't be going until September.
Right, the academy is only run January and September.
Right, so they were too late, yeah.
They were too late, so they were hired, and they're working on the line right now. So the academy provides a couple of things. So the baseline to put a firefighter on the line, you have to have a minimum of firefighter 1 legally. So they already have that. They're going to go to the recruit school and gain a plethora of other certifications that allow them to operate in the capacity that we want them to. So they're currently serving on the line. They're finishing up medic school. They're both active in school, and they should be done within the next 60 to 90 days. and then they'll go to the academy in September.
Okay, well, that's what I thought, and that's what was stated, and there was some disagreement by some board members that thought they were at the academy now, so I wanted to clarify that. And the academy takes how long? You said that there's a lot.
16 weeks.
16, and that's.
16, 17
What is the cost per?
$1,600.
68? And that's paid by the town? And are they, you said they're currently in school for paramedic qualification?
Correct.
Are they being paid now?
Then when they work the shift, they are not to go to paramedic school.
No, but they're getting their base salary.
Correct.
And when did that begin?
With their first day of employment, so it would have been sometime in February.
Okay, you don't know if it was early. We could just say mid,
Yeah.
as an average. If you say mid-February, it can't be off by more than 2 weeks, right? It's a short month. Okay, so they are getting their full pay. Okay. And when they do work, which, are your shifts A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4? Do they have?
2, 3, 4, yeah.
What shift are they on?
They were assigned to 2 of the 4 shifts.
Oh, I thought you had said that both of them were on one shift.
They will be.
They will be.
When we finish the recruit school, but not
Okay.
right now.
Right now, they are,
There's 2 shifts with 9 and 2 shifts with 8.
okay, all right. Because I thought that both were on one shift. I thought that's what you had said. But when you said that last time, you meant in the long term.
Right, when they finish recruit school, when they finish, they're not, we can't change the operation to the department for a few months, let them go to school, change it back the way. To
Right.
maintain some continuity, they're 9 to a shift right now, 2 shifts.
Okay.
Actually, recruit school, which will be around the end of the calendar year, is when we'll start with the 2 shift, or 1 shift with 10, the 3 with 8.
Okay, so last month, when you had said both will be on the same shift, that was more of a long-term projection rather than short-term.
Sure.
So that
much like
led to no, I could understand it. I'm just clarifying, because there was a lot of confusion at the Board of Finance meeting, and I thought that the 2 were on one shift now, but when you said that they were going to be last month, because I did ask you about it, and you said both would be on one shift for 10, that was the long-term deployment plan, as opposed to short-term.
We're still looking at them as being in training
Okay.
through the end of the year at this point.
Right, okay. They're both, you said, currently being trained for paramedics, both of them. Okay, well, that's good, because we need more paramedics. And now getting back, now I'm going to change gears to the fact that there is a proposed budget that calls for the hiring of 2 more for the 1920 fiscal year. If in fact that budget is approved and 2 more are hired, will hopefully they start school in September with these other 2? Do you think that's feasible for how long it takes?
No, the way I understand the budget at this point, they won't be able to get hired until January.
Okay, so it's-
They're
right.
half a year, so if we
Okay.
can get them, knowing now, so if you recall, when we received permission to hire the 2 this current fiscal year, I had only weeks to prepare before the academy started.
Right.
With the budget passing, let's say, in May.
Right.
And going into effect in July, we can hire in enough advance notice to be able to put them into January's academy. the 2.
In January, okay. And so during the interim, they would be serving similar to how the 2 new ones are now serving? During,
most-
oh, no, they're not going to really start till,
Yeah, right.
they're not starting until January, that's right. Okay, and then I wanted to just talk about apparatus. Some of my questions were already answered. I was sorry to hear that E1, the 2014 SMEAL, is back in the garage again. My other question about apparatus is related to comments you made that in the Courier, one of the local papers, that covered the town meeting where $750,000 was approved to purchase another fire engine. And you had said in there that it was your intention to replace the second oldest. So would that be E8, the 1992 Pierce?
Yes,
Because the oldest is E3, the 87 Pierce.
correct. That's the one there's a grant application.
Right, okay, so that was my question. If the grant is approved, then that's when E8, the older vehicle, would be replaced?
Engine 3 is the oldest, so the grant is for engine 3.
Right, the Grand, that's what I just said. The E3, the 1987 Pierce, which is 32 years old, will be replaced, hopefully when we get the FEMA approved. And the E8, the 27-year-old 92 Pierce, is designated to be replaced
Right.
with the money.
Correct. At
Okay.
current day, just understand that between now and then, if let's say we were to hear the grant is, we're not going to take delivery of this engine for possibly 10 months.
Right.
So between now and the next 10 months, things may change. Something
Right.
else may break, something else may have a catastrophic, failure of a pump or of an engine. But as we sit here today, that is the current plan.
Right, and I assume perhaps maybe the E8, the second oldest, might, you're replacing that one first, because even though it's the second oldest, it might be in worse shape mechanically, or perhaps E3, the older one, has other attributes that makes it more useful.
Correct.
But again, of course, that could change in 10 months. It could change in 10 minutes with the problems that we're having with some of the engines. Now, as far as the ladders, of course, we have the relatively brand-new Sutphen, the 2018, that was just delivered, I believe, in October. That was a $1.2 million engine. That was with a purchase with a lease, right?
Correct. The
Yeah.
Board of Fire decided to spread out their payment.
Yes, right. But that was, the other ladder is right here in Northeast. It's a 2001 Pierce, is that correct? And if you get the $300,000 that you asked for a used engine, would that replace the 2001 Pierce, or do you want a third ladder?
That will replace this. If you recall,
It's hard to recall everything.
No, I understand. I understand the apparatus can be confusing. So here's something, let's go back a couple of years.
Okay,
2.5 years ago, this station had 2 engines in it, engine 5 and engine 7. Engine 5 failed a pump test, and it was too old to put any kind of significant money into, and it was therefore taken out of service and stripped of all hose, and it was what we called an Uber a couple of times in this meeting, because all it was allowed to do was bring firefighters to and from the scene. It could have no other capacity whatsoever. That engine sat in use up until the time that the new ladder truck arrived. Now, if you go back down and look at the public meeting from a year and a half ago, the ladder truck in 2001, we had a letter from the mechanic, town vendor, that said that it was going to fail within the next year and it needed to get replaced. It was estimated about $300,000 in repairs. There's rust all on the inner side of it. The rust is pitting the frame. There's electrical issues are taking place with it. There's a computer on board at $75,000 alone that's actively failing as we sit here today. At different times, you have to toggle a switch up and down several times to get the ladder to respond. That's why that ladder truck was replaced. Now, rather than continue to keep the engine here that had no hose on it for a period of time, we took the ladder truck that at this point, as we sit here today, hasn't had any significant repairs written up on it yet, but it's going to. We know it is. We had a report from 18 months ago that said it was due to go out any minute. So then when that comes up for any kind of significant repair, we're not repairing it. We've already been advised not to. So that's why that ladder truck is here. It just replaced an engine that was sitting here with nothing on it. So I've asked, so here's what we are left with. We could either purchase a new engine for $600,000 to $750,000 and replace engine 5 that was here, or I've advocated to save the town money and to spend $300,000 on a used ladder truck. We
right.
killed 2 birds with 1 stone, for lack of better words. You have a second ladder truck, not a third, because this one will go, because it's due to go any minute.
That was the primary question, because the way it was worded in the paper when you said that you needed a backup, that could have been interpreted as an additional ladder rather than, that's all. I just wanted to ask
Sure.
whether,
But
so it's
just so
replaced.
you understand, because there
Yes.
seems to be some people that think that we're going to have 3 ladder trucks, and I've never advocated for that. You're going to have 2 ladder trucks, and
Right.
it's not going to be a backup. There's calls that we need both ladder trucks on scene for.
Right.
There's also going to be times that we can now keep ahead of the maintenance for the current ladder truck that we have, the new tower, because we'll have a second ladder that we can put into service and not put the residents at risk.
Right, well, that's, again, I said there were 2 primary reasons that I was coming here tonight, was to clarify that the proposed use is a replacement, not an addition. But
Can I interject interject 1 second, please?
Sure.
I think with which may have been lost here, I think the ingenious idea about purchasing a used ladder truck in lieu of purchasing a new pumper, and we, obviously, the town, special town meeting just allocated $750,000 for a new pumper, which was inclusive of the equipment on it. But at $300,000, that used ladder truck is going to save the town at least $350,000 if we purchased a new pumper. Because keep in mind, we're going to be able to take the equipment off of the existing ladder truck and put it on the used ladder truck. And obviously, we're going to have to purchase some additional equipment. Am I correct on that, Chief? But again, it's going to be a significant savings to the town. That was the whole thought process behind looking to purchase a used ladder truck from down south that didn't incur the type of rust situation that we experience here up in the Northeast. So just,
Right, okay.
I'm sure you have some other questions.
The ladder truck that is here, though, despite your warnings from the mechanic last year, is it functional?
Most of the time.
Okay, and most of the time.
The most, again, let me interject
Yeah.
again. As the chief indicated, when they have to raise the ladder,
Right, that's the whole purpose of the ladder truck.
the whole purpose of the ladder truck, the switch, the computer that regulates that is malfunctioning. So in the event of an emergency where we need that ladder truck, a firefighter is attempting to raise the ladder multiple times, and there's no assurance that it's going to work. So we just can't run a fire department with that
Right.
type of equipment. It just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, did you ever consider, you're going for this FEMA grant, did you ever consider a new ladder truck for that FEMA grant rather than going for a second new engine?
So the way the grants are set up is you get the most points for the oldest apparatus.
Okay,
So that's why the grant is written right now for the oldest apparatus. I want to say last year, the oldest apparatus the federal government provided any kind of replacement for was 28 years old. There's not an apparatus in the nation, from what and this is coming from our FEMA contact, when I revisited with him before this current application period to find out if it was worth putting in for another engine again or not. He told me if it's less than 28 years old, don't bother, because nationwide, that's what the norm is.
okay. So probably the best reason why you're using the $750,000 that was approved in February to buy the second oldest was so that you could
Keep my grant happy.
keep the grant application for the oldest going, which is probably the main reason why you're replacing the second oldest
Like I
first.
said, but if
Yeah.
the grant is turned down.
Yeah,
that's what-
no, I know, grants are always a roll of the dice. The other thing you could think about, you guys have talked a lot tonight about the 2014 Engine 1 and all of its problems with its head gasket and, the fact that that was an emergency purchase off the line. It was also a demo, if my memory serves me correctly. And so, that begs the question, based on our experience with buying a demo and all the trouble that we've had, is buying a used, I understand you're saying you're buying it from the south where, there's less wear and tear because of weather and salt conditions, but still, it's a used vehicle. So, that just came to my mind just now as I'm standing here. Buying a demo didn't work well. Let's keep, if is a big if the 300,000 is approved, again, we could be buying another headache. But because I consider the Engine 1 kind of used, but not probably as used as this one will be, but just something to think about. What else did I have to talk about? You already updated on the FEMA grant. And as far as the status of the new engine, you've already said that's about 10 months down the line. The committee has already spec'd it out and all of that, so that's going along. I wanted to talk again about the number of firefighters that you foresee in the long term, because as we all know, last year at your extensive workshop, Chief, you had requested 8 firefighters for 18-19 and then 8 for 19-20. And then I heard you say at the most recent workshop in January, you said perhaps going for 16 was a mistake in hindsight. But then when I read the article in the Courier, so I thought based on that it was back to just 8. But then I read in the Courier the article about the town meeting. You started talking again about 16. So is that still, despite your comments in January, is that still your long-term goal, is 16 more firefighters?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, because it seemed like you abandoned it.
I think what happened-
Do you remember the comment that I'm referring to? Okay.
I do remember it well, and we've talked about this with the commission as well. Instead of people necessarily educating themselves on why 16 firefighters, they immediately just said no. And gave no thought to the fact of the recurring issues that the department is having, or to the response concerns, or to the decline in the volunteers, or to the increasing call volume. They just right away said no. So to kind of take a softer approach at it, we've let off that initial, I guess shocking number for some of 16, which really is only 4 per shift, and we backed off of that in hopes that we can work towards that number. But we still need to work towards that number.
Okay, I'm just, reacting to statements you made which are open to interpretation, and, that was really the root of my question there. So 16 remains your long-term goal. I think, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for the members of the Board of Finance or other people in town, but I think you said it's only 4 per shift, but the 16 was a 50% increase, and that was the shock value.
Sure, it's well, we're looking at that one side of it. We're not looking at the fact that we've been running with 3 apparatus for 45 years. So we got a 45-year problem to fix.
Right.
And keep in mind, the initial presentation of the 16 was predicated on Mike Frieda's charge to us to present the long-term goals of the department. They weren't to say, we were looking for 16 in that year. I mean, if the Board of Finance and the residents saw clear to do that, that would be great. But the truth of the matter is that was the long-term goal for the fire department in order for us to perform the duties that are necessary that the chief has outlined multiple times during the workshops.
Okay. Right. Well, last year the request was 8 for 18-19 and 8 for 19-20. I don't know if 2 years is long-term in your book or not, but it seemed a little shorter term than you're describing. But I just wanted to clarify, based on the chief's comments in January, whether that was still the long-term goal, because everybody seems now to be. And by everybody, I'm talking about discussions at the Board of Finance, not any particular people. But the discussions at the Board of Finance tend to be more geared toward, a total of 8 more. But then I read your article, or the article in the Courier, and I thought, okay, it's going back and forth. My last question is about inspections, not the plan reviews that are done for construction, but the actual inspections of business premises. And for those, it's my understanding that we do not get paid any fees for those inspections. Those are required.
For existing buildings, yes.
For existing buildings, which was one of the reasons why, we had added, one of the many reasons why we added a third administrative person a few years ago. Well, it was for the billing and the training, but I always thought that it was also to make inspections more doable.
He's not credentialed to do it.
No, not him to do them. He's billing and training.
Sure.
But to free up time for the 2 people who are qualified to do the inspections, which is yourself and Deputy Chief Marcus, I didn't mean to imply that.
Sure. No, that's.
No, I know that he cannot not do the inspections, but you two are the only two fire marshals qualified with the credentials to do the inspections. So if I recall correctly, one of the many justifications, besides the billing, paramedic billing and training, was to free up more time for the two fire marshals to enable inspections.
Sure.
So how many inspections are you both doing per month?
So we divided up. The deputy essentially does all plan reviews. I do some inspections, and our inspectors other inspections. I'm not going to give you the numbers of.
Okay, by plan reviews, though, again, that's the plan reviews of construction documents.
Correct.
I'm not talking about plan reviews. I understand the plan review process. That's for new construction, where you have to review construction documents and sign off that the building codes are being followed and egress and ingress are appropriate for your
Field
vehicles.
inspections and so forth.
Everything, yeah. I'm talking about inspections of existing restaurants, package stores, because there was great concern a few years ago that we were not living up to our statutory obligation to do.
Sure, our
to do
ministerial
this.
duties, right?
Yes.
And now you're a term you're probably familiar with.
Yes.
All right, so we can't decide whether we're going to do them or not. So you're right. So what happened was when we decided to start billing for building permits, one of the town attorneys weighed in and said, if you're going to start billing for building permits and have money put aside to offset the fire marshal's office, you've got to start doing the inspections. And
That's my question.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's inspectors that are hired to do that, and the money from the building permits collection is offset to take care of that fire consultant line.
Okay, so the consultants are doing the premises inspections of existing.
And new,
Building.
so they're doing both.
Yes, I understand they're
They're doing
doing
the foot
both.
inspections, yes.
But they're also doing inspection, again, I'm putting aside the plan review. I understand the plan review process, and that in 2016, in June of 2016, we had a town meeting authorizing supplemental building fees to include I believe it's $8 per $1,000 of construction value for plan review of construction. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about the inspections of existing buildings that there was great concern about.
Sure.
So those are also being done by the same consultants? Okay, and not by either one of you? Okay, thank you very much.
Any other public comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I'd like to reconvene the Tuesday, March 26, 2019 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. Is there any further business coming before this commission? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.